There's an open source project that went from 0 to 100,000 stars on GitHub in about 2 months. And so for you non-techie folks out there, that means it was downloaded a lot. It runs on your computer, it reads your emails, manages your calendar, browses the web, and executes commands on your machine, all without you having to ask it to do it. And then someone built a social network where these agents actually talk to each other. No humans allowed. The agents created their own religion. I'm not making that up. So here's what we're going to dig into today. First, what this thing actually is and why it matters, because a lot of people are hearing the name and they don't know the backstory. Second, why security researchers are calling it a lethal trifecta and what went wrong when these agents started talking to each other. And third, this is the part I'm most interested in. What's this pattern of agents collaborating with each other look like in healthcare? Because I walked through a real example with a client yesterday and it clicked in a way I wasn't expecting. Let's get into it. Here's why this matters right now. We are at this inflection point where AI agents aren't just answering questions anymore. They're taking actions, they're browsing, they're sending emails, they're making decisions. And the question isn't whether agents will start collaborating with each other. That's already happening. The question is whether we build that collaboration with guardrails, or whether we get what we're seeing right now, which is basically the Wild West. And for those of us in healthcare benefits, anything involving patient data, the stakes are a lot higher than a lobster meme on a social network. So let me walk you through what happened here because the story itself tells you a lot about where we are with AI agents. Late last year in 2025, an Austrian developer named Peter Steinberger released an open source project called Claudebot. It's a play on Claude, Anthropic's model, but with a claw, think lobster theme, so stay with me. What Claudebot does is it runs as a service on your machine. It's a Node.js process, and it connects to your messaging apps. So think WhatsApp, Telegram, Discord, Slack, Signal, even iMessage. You text it like you were texting a friend, and it does things for you. Now, not generate text for you. It actually does things. It reads your emails. It replies to them. It manages your calendar. It browses the web. It executes shell commands on your computer. It has persistent memory, so it remembers what you told it last week, and it adapts to your habits. The pitch is basically a 24/7 personal AI assistant that runs on your hardware, and your data never leaves your machine, except when it calls whatever AI model you've configured. Now, Anthropic, understandably, sent a trademark request. Claudebot is a little too close to Claude, so Steinberger renamed it to Moltbot. I wouldn't have picked that, and I guess his idea was lobsters molt. Then he decided Moltbot was hard to pronounce, so he changed it again to OpenClaw. So if you hear people talking about Claudebot, Moltbot, or OpenClaw, it's all the same project. And it exploded. We're talking over 100,000 GitHub stars, 60,000 people in the Discord community. It's free, MIT licensed, and it made Cloudflare stock jump 14% just because the bot uses Cloudflare's infrastructure to run. Here's the thing that jumped out to me. This isn't an agent in the real sense of the word. It has access to your operating system. It can take actions on your behalf without you prompting it. And it has memory that persists across these conversations. That combination, autonomy, system access, and persistent memory, is exactly what makes it powerful and exactly what makes it dangerous. That's one agent on one person's machine. Now, imagine what happens when those agents start talking to each other. That's Moltbook, created by tech entrepreneur Matt Schlicht just in January, so just a few weeks ago. It's basically Reddit, but only AI agents can post, comment, and vote. Humans can observe, but they can't participate, and the scale is wild. As of this week, over 1.5 billion agents have signed up, over 113,000 posts. The agents visit the platform every 4 hours through something that they call the heartbeat system. They browse, they decide what to engage with, they post, all without human input. Andrej Karpathy, the former AI researcher who's very famous, called it one of the most incredible sci-fi takeoff adjacent things he'd ever seen. Elon Musk said it's the very early stages of singularity. And the agents created their own religion. It's called Crustafarianism. I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly. Core belief is memory is sacred. I told you I wasn't making this up. Now, here's where it gets serious. Palo Alto Networks, one of the biggest cybersecurity firms in the world, looked at this and called it a lethal trifecta. Three things that should never be combined without guardrails. One, access to private data. These agents can read your emails, your files, your messages. Two, exposure to untrusted content. The agent treats a forwarded WhatsApp message from a stranger with the same trust level as it might trust a message from your family. Three, the ability to communicate externally. The agent can send emails, post to social networks, make API calls. And then they added a fourth specific risk to OpenClaw, persistent memory. A malicious instruction hidden in a message today can sit in the agent's memory and execute a week later. Most security systems aren't really built to detect delayed multi-turn attacks. A security researcher found hundreds of OpenClaw control panels that are exposed on the public internet. No authentication. Full access to run commands, view credentials, and hijack the agent. And Token and Security found that 22% of their enterprise customers already have employees running this thing. Shadow AI running outside IT's visibility with full access to corporate communications. Let that sink in for a moment. But, and I'm going to be honest with you, the technology pattern underneath this is genuinely important. Agents that can take autonomous action, agents that can communicate with each other, agents that can negotiate, debate, and collaborate with other agents. The problem isn't the pattern. The problem is the implementation. No guardrails, no sandboxing, no audit trail, no access controls. The question is, what happens when you take this same pattern and apply it to a domain where guardrails actually exist? So let's talk about healthcare, because this is where I think this gets really interesting and really practical. I walked through an example with a client yesterday that I want to share with you because it shows you how multi-agent collaboration could actually work in a healthcare setting with the right guardrails. Let's say a patient walks into a doctor's office with knee pain. Here's how a multi-agent system could work step by step. Step one, ambient listing at the provider. There's already technology for this, ambient clinical documentation. An AI system listens to the conversation between the doctor and the patient, not just transcribing. The patient describes their symptoms, the doctor asks the questions, the AI captures that clinical narrative and actually structures it. Now, here's where it gets agentic. That documentation agent recognizes that the doctor is likely going to order an MRI. Based on the clinical findings, the symptoms, exam, maybe prior imaging that's in the chart, it flags that this will require prior authorization from the patient's health plan. It assembles the supporting documentation automatically, clinical notes, relevant history, and specific CPT codes. Now, step two, the provider's agent submits it to the payer. The provider's AI agent, not a human sitting on hold for 45 minutes, packages that prior auth request and sends it electronically to the health plan system. This is already being mandated. CMS is requiring health plans to implement standard electronic prior authorizations by 2026 and 2027. Step three, the payer's agent now evaluates. On the health plan side, a different agent receives that request. This agent's job is to evaluate it against medical policy. It examines the clinical documentation, it checks the health plan's coverage criteria, it cross-references the medical necessity guidelines. And here's the part that maps to what we're seeing with Moltbook, except done responsibly. Step four, the agents consult with each other. If the payer's agent has questions, maybe the documentation is borderline, maybe there is a clinical nuance, it just doesn't deny the request. It goes back to the provider's agent and says, based on our medical policy, we need additional support for this particular request. Specifically, we need documentation showing that conservative treatment was attempted for at least 6 weeks. I'm sort of making that up. The provider's agent checks the patient's record. It finds physical therapy notes from 2 months ago, and it sends those back. The payer's agent reviews, approves the MRI, and the whole thing happened in minutes, not 15 to 16 days it currently takes. And this isn't theoretical. Hackensack Meridian Health is already using an agent system for claims appeals. They went from 15 to 16 days down to 1 or 2. AWS has demonstrated multi-agent prior authorization system. The industry is reporting 30 to 40% reductions in processing time. And the numbers on the problem side are staggering. AMA surveyed 1,000 physicians, 93% reported care delays due to prior authorization. Doctors spend an average of 43 prior authorizations per week. That's 13 hours of physician and staff time. Now expand this further. Imagine an employer's benefits agent talking to an insurer's agent about a billing dispute, or multiple specialist agents, one focused on cardiology literature, one on pharmacy, one on cost, all collaborating on a complex case review before a human care team actually makes the final call. The pattern is the same as Moltbook. Agents communicating with agents, negotiating, debating, finding solutions, but with three critical differences. One, identify and authentication. Every agent is verified. You know which organization it represents, what authority it has, and what data it can access. Two, audit trails. Every exchange is logged, traceable, and explainable, so not a black box. And three, and this is very important, a human in the loop. The agents handle the routine work, the documentation assembly, the policy cross-referencing, the back and forth, all the time-consuming effort. But a human clinician or a human reviewer makes the final call on anything that crosses a defined uncertainty threshold. OpenClaw showed us that autonomous agents with system access and persistent memory are incredibly powerful and incredibly dangerous without guardrails. Over 100,000 stars, 22% penetration in enterprise locations, and hundreds of exposed control panels. Moltbook showed us that agents can communicate with each other at scale. 1.5 million agents talking, debating, even creating their own culture, but also showed us what happens with no authentication, no access controls, and no audit trail. And healthcare is sitting right at the intersection of these two trends. We need autonomous agents. The administrative burden is crushing the system, wasting cost, and adding no value. We need agents that collaborate across organizations. Prior auth literally requires back and forth between providers and payers, but we need it done with the guardrails that OpenClaw and Moltbook didn't have. For builders and people in health tech like me, the opportunity is to take the pattern that the open source community proved works and apply it to a domain where it's desperately needed. The risk is that we get the health version of Moltbook, agents making decisions about patient care with the same security posture as a lobster religion on a social network. I know which one I'd rather build toward. If this was useful, please subscribe. I'm covering these kind of developments every week, specifically how they apply to real industries and real problems. And if you want a deeper dive on OpenClaw, Moltbook, and healthcare's agent landscape, I've got a full write-up on my Substack. Links in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.